Welcome back. With us now is North Cenrtal College Sports Information Director, Clark Teuscher. Clark, as always, thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here.
So the women's track and field team makes it 2 for 2 at the Wheaton Quad as they come away with the victory, scoring almost 50 points more than the closest competitor.
Yeah, they won 11 out of 18 events, and every single event it was somebody different finishing first. So really a great show of team depth across the board in all the different events.
They really showed their depth in the field. They swept the throws, winning the shot put, discus, javelin, and in the hammer throw again, Lena Baker coming through as CCIW Field Athlete of the Week.
Yeah, certainly looks like she's figured some things out in terms of her mechanics in that event. She's had 2 weeks in a row of about the same distance, and both times it was in less than ideal conditions. So I think she's poised to try and make a splash here on the national scene a little bit. She's outside of what it would take to get into the national championships right now, but with a month or so left in the season, there's plenty of time to get on that as the weather improves a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned the weather. The weather was really a factor for both the men and the women in that meet, but the Cardinals didn't let that slow them down. Do you think that sort of helps sometimes for especially the longer running events?
From a mental standpoint, it might. Most of the time when you're dealing with conditions like that where there's wind and some rain and then cold temperatures, it affects you a lot more mentally than it does physically. So if they get into a championship situation where they've got to deal with some of that, they'll have something to fall back on. It's just tough in terms of trying to get qualifying marks for the national championships. It's not enough to beat your opponents. You also have to meet certain standards that other people around the country who aren't having to contend with those weather conditions are able to go ahead and get. So it's really just kind of a matter of persevering and trying to keep yourself healthy and keep yourself in the right frame of mind heading into the championship meets in May. And
the weather definitely cleared up later in the weekend for the lacrosse team as they set a new program mark for wins with a big win over DePauw 17-13.
DePauw is a first-year program. They're off to an excellent start. They actually won their first 4 games of the season, so they're definitely off and running. And that was a really competitive game, the best one that we've had in terms of it being close at home this year. So to see the girls step up and take on that challenge, it was really a good thing to see, and another demonstration of the steps forward that they've been taking this season.
Definitely taking steps forward, and the Cardinal Report was there to see the lacrosse team record-setting win against the Tigers. Let's go to the highlight.
North Cenrtal lacrosse team hoping to stay unbeaten at Benedetti Worley Stadium, welcoming in the DePauw University Tigers on Sunday. Cardinals up 2-1 early, and Danielle Fiala would add to that lead with her 35th goal of the season. But Elizabeth McCracken and the Tigers claw back with a vengeance. McCracken scores 3 of the next 6 DePauw goals unassisted, and all of a sudden it's a 7-6 Tiger lead. Still down a goal, Adelaide Diekmeyer knots it back up at 8 on the restart. Fiala closes out the half by breaking up the tie as the Cards lead 9-8 at the break. The Tigers respond early in the second as Jamie Powell evens it back up at 9. Then 90 seconds later, Mary Claire Heldring puts DePauw back in front. But it's time for the Cardinals to make their move. Now tied at 10, Gina Fisher slices through the D for the goal. Then Mallory Barr wastes no time on the restart to push the lead to 2. Leah Lepresti uses the same technique to make it 13-10. Cardinals win 17-13, but they would fall to Augustana by 1 later in the week.
Clark, you mentioned that was one of the more competitive games. I don't think the Cardinals were expecting the Tigers to be fighting as hard as they were, especially for a first-year program.
Well, it's just tough to know because they didn't have any common opponents to really refer to heading into it. So it really kind of flying blind there at the beginning. And then once they recognized that they were going to be into a fight to the end, they responded well and put together a good run in the second half.
And another great run going on this season. The softball team, they break into the top 25 last week. Not as high as some may have expected, but still, they may be moving up the ranks again as they move to 25-1 this week.
That's all you really can do to try and improve your standing on those is to win, and they've continued to do that. And coming up on a couple of really important conference doubleheaders, if they're able to continue to put themselves in that position, they might be able to host the conference tournament at the beginning of May, which would put them on the inside track toward getting an automatic bid to the national championships.
Yeah, the first one on the slate is a doubleheader against Carthage, who right now is first in the CCIW at 6-0. But really, the Cardinals are right there at 3-1. It's anybody's game at this point.
And those two teams are very similar. Carthage also has benefited from strong pitching this year. So I would expect, presuming the weather holds up and they're able to play, that they would be a couple of pretty low-scoring games.
Cardinals have relied on strong pitching from Vlas Demanja, but it was her batter's eye that got them the win against the University of Chicago as she gets a walk-off walk, essentially, at the bottom of the 7th.
Yeah, she's always been a pretty patient hitter. That's something that Coach K and his staff have always worked on with the hitters is being selective and knowing situations and what you need to help the team out, and really kind of held herself together mentally in a clutch situation and got the job done.
The baseball team wasn't able to get the job done against Augustana after a rain delay. They fall 3-1. Cardinals having a rough time right now in the CCIW.
Yeah, they had some chances late in the game to get some runs on the board and weren't able to come up with a hit when they needed it. There's enough time yet for them to kind of right the ship a little bit and get into the conference tournament, but they're going to have to get to work. Yeah,
it's still really jumbled up right there. They're probably not going to be able to get that 1st or 2nd seed, but they're really right there for any of the 3rd and 4th seeds.
Well, a couple of years ago, Illinois Wesleyan barely made it into the conference tournament and won the national championship. So really just getting into the postseason and getting yourself right at the right time really is what's important in a sport like baseball.
Yep, anything can happen. Clark, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The men's track and field team is back in action this weekend as they head back to Wheaton College for the Don Church Twilight Invitational. I'm Marc Dahlquist. We'll see you here next time on the Cardinal Report.